All right, guys, let's learn how to solve absolute value equations. They're not bad at all. First thing I want to say, concept-wise, the absolute value of a number, basically we know means its distance from zero. All right, that's a very common application of it. All right, we know, for example, we can extend that to say the absolute value of an expression. You're gonna hear me use that word a lot. The absolute value of an expression. Let's say the absolute value of an expression is 5. Well, that means that that expression could have a value of 5, but that expression could also have a value of -5 because you're taking the absolute value of it. Your end result is 5 anyways. So keep this in mind. That absolute value really, you usually have two possibilities. All right. So we get to a very basic example. The absolute value of the expression 3x. All right. Well, that expression 3x could be equal to 9, right? If you have a 9 inside of the absolute value bars, you'll get 9. But that expression, again, hear how I'm using the word expression. Vocabulary really matters right here. That expression could also have a worth of -9. All right. And what you basically have is two equations. All right. You're basically breaking this up into two equations. So I'm going to solve both equations really in one step. I solve them both by dividing by 3, and I get x equals 3 for the first one and x equals -3 for the second one. You can substitute those answers in and you will see that both of them work. I would always check. Why? Because every now and then you do get some solutions that do not make sense, all right? Or some, you call them extraneous solutions. So make sure you always check your answers by substituting them back in. In this case, 3 multiplied by both 3 and -3 gives you an expression with the absolute value of 9. All right, so let's get to some bigger problems. What if I have a more beefy expression? All right, so here's an expression. It looks like a linear function. It's set equal to 16. This is really the same concept. That expression, as long as you call it that, it's not bad. That expression could have a value of 16, but that expression could also have a value of -16. So that's really the concept of absolute value equations. And after that, there's not really much new about them. So this is going to be, we're going to add 4 to both sides and you get 20. So x is going to be equal to 4. And here we can add 4, we get -12. So 5x equals -12 and x equals -12 fifths. I can substitute both of these. 5 times 4 is 20. 20 minus 4 is 16. Absolute value of 16 is 16. Works. -12 fifths. 5 times -12 fifths is -12. -12 minus 4 is -16. Absolute value of -16 is 16. And I'm checking that with mental math. You can check it by actually substituting, or you can evaluate it using Desmos, whatever you like. Okay? But both of those have had two solutions. Well, what if we have something that is big time different? What if we have something like this? So this is where sometimes some students get into trouble, because when you're using repeated reasoning, a lot of times you might say, well, okay, the absolute value will be equal to -75 and then +75. Well, first of all, that wouldn't make sense for absolute value because absolute value is always positive, right? The next thing you got to think about is this 5 is not really subject to the rules of absolute value, right? There's no absolute value bar around it or anything. So what we really need to do right here is we need to simplify first, all right? So I'm going to simplify this equation by subtracting 5 to both sides first before I do anything else. So I'm going to subtract 5. That gives me -80 over here on the right side. It's a completely different or a completely new looking equation. It has the same value. Then I still don't really need to think about absolute value so much because this is still -8 times something equals -80. So I'm going to go ahead and use algebra to move my -8. So I have absolute value of -2x is equal to, well, I divide both sides by -8 and I get +10. Now I have a very simple absolute value equation. -2x absolute value is equal to 10, which I call -2x equals 10, and -2x equals -10, which gives me an answer of x equals 5, and an answer of x equals -5, and x equals +5. All right, both of these are my possibilities. I can check them. Either one of them will give me 10. 10 times -8 is -80. 5 minus 80 is -75. They both work. There you go.